Welcome back to All In Driving. When we changed the oil a couple weeks ago, I realized it was pretty nasty. So we're gonna start changing all the fluids in the car. Today, we're gonna flush the coolant and we're also gonna flush the power steering. So they should both be pretty easy. I do have the front of the car jacked up just so I can get my 5-gallon bucket under there. But first, I want to address the moisture issue that we have inside the car. I still don't have a fix, and I think it's gonna take me a while to figure out where that moisture is coming from, but I bought 2 of these EvaDry rechargeable desiccant dehumidifiers. We're gonna throw one in the cabin, one in the trunk, see which one gets filled up faster, and hopefully that'll help us make the determination on where that moisture might be coming from. So with that, let's go all in. Before you do anything with the coolant especially, you wanna make sure that it's cool to the touch. Otherwise, you might get a little bit of hot coolant in your face, which is definitely not a good idea. Now, to go a little further on that, I'm not a mechanic. Everything here is for entertainment purposes, so keep that in mind. You know, you're trying things at your own risk. If you don't feel comfortable working on your car, doing this kind of stuff, please don't do it. So I am gonna pop the cap off, just so it drains a little faster. And then I'm gonna go under the car. Here's the radiator, and at one end, here for me it's on the passenger side, it's right here, and then the plug is right on the side there. I've got my 5-gallon bucket underneath. I've got a set of little pliers just in case. There it goes. You don't want to undo it all the way at the beginning, otherwise it's going to come out of here too, and we don't know if it's going to spray wide. We want to make sure it all goes into our bucket. Well, let's go, and I just kind of want to show you the next steps in the process. I've got some radiator flush that's going to help clean anything out. I've got a few gallons of distilled water. You want to make sure it's distilled. And then finally, I've got coolant. This is the coolant that I need for my car. Make sure you get the right one for yours. Now while that's draining, we're gonna take care of the power steering fluid. I checked it already and it actually looks fairly clean, but I don't know what's at the bottom of the pump. I don't know how it looks. So I wanna make sure we're all squared away and this is clean and flush. We've got the time, so let's do it. What you're gonna wanna do, get the cap off. Hopefully everything is gonna drain in here. It's better if you have a longer hose, but I'm just working with what I've got right now. I'm gonna suck as much of this as I can out. If you don't have a pump, you can also use a turkey baster. Now that the fluid is almost out of the reservoir, you can see there's a little bit in the bottom. I'm gonna go turn the wheel and see what last little bit I can get out of there so we can pump the rest out and get some fresh stuff in. Now that I've got almost all the fluid out of the reservoir itself, I'm gonna go in here. Just make sure we cover up any leaks, any potential leaks. And then we're gonna get this clamp off. Holy hell, that was a pain in the ass, but I got it off and I've capped off this side. I'm gonna stick my hose now in here and fill the reservoir up with my new power steering fluid and pump it until I see the new stuff coming through. It's okay if we're over full right now because we're just going to start pumping it all out anyway. All right, so with some painstaking of getting my tubes to all fit and actually create the vacuum seal, it took a while to get this rolling. There is a lot of air in that line, and I don't know why. I've been pumping for a few minutes, and I'm not sure if I have a good seal, but when I do pump, you'll see that it's much clearer now. So now that the power steering fluid is looking good, we are going to put everything back together and hopefully we don't make too big of a mess. Do this first. A couple drips, but okay, now this part is the tricky part. You can't see it because this is in the way, but I've got to pull this little cap off and get my hose back in there as quickly as possible. So the hose is ready. And there we go. Not too bad. Not too bad. A couple drips, but all right. Hose back on. We'll get it clamped back up. We'll fill this up. We'll get the car started and see what we've got. Now, because we're doing two things at once, it can be pretty easy to get a little forgetful. We can't start this car until we've got liquid back in. Now, we can't pour liquid back in until we make sure that our valve is closed. So I've already done that part. I'm going to take my radiator flush and pour that in first, and then pour in the distilled water. Let's go ahead and pour this in. And by creating a good seal here, what we're also doing is clearing all the air out that's in the system, because we ran it dry, we closed the bottom up, there's going to be a bunch of air in there. So it looks like we're full up. All right, so now we can drop the car, get it started up, work on the fluid, drive around for a little bit till everything runs through and kind of clears out our system here, and then come back. This should be all done unless there's a real big issue. We've put something on wrong and it's leaking, but then we'll replace the water with our actual coolant. I'm not seeing any leaks under the car. Everything's looking good. The power steering fluid looks full enough. So I'm going to take it for a drive and then we'll be back in a few minutes. The drive went great. I think we're pretty good on power steering fluid, which is awesome. Everything has cooled down enough. So all we've got to do left is get the water out, put the new coolant in, drop her down, and we're done. I want to share a couple important things with you guys. So for the power steering, I've never done that before. It was fairly straightforward, a little awkward being the first time. But what I noticed when I got in the car is it did feel a little bit better. And I had a squeal before that went away. What I did off camera that you didn't see was just bleed this out a little more. There was a lot of air in the line, maybe not in the hoses, but at least in the line that was pumping out. So I did a little extra work and just turned the steering wheel over, held it there, kind of pumped out any air that was in it. As for the radiator, this video has actually taken me 3 days because I had to flush it multiple times. You can't tell much of a difference between the old fluid here and what's new here, but I'm going to show you the flushes as I went through them, and you can see the vast difference every time that I flush, at least until towards the end. All in all, I flushed the system 7 times, which gave me enough time to clean the garage, do my taxes, go on vacation, grow a beard, shave it again, and have time to edit most of this video before I finish recording. This is our first flush, really dark. The second flush is a little bit better. You can see a little bit lighter. Third flush, a little bit lighter again. Fourth flush, we can finally see the bottom of the bucket. And then I ran out of 5-gallon buckets. So here's flushes 5, 6, and 7. They all look about the same in the jugs. The gallons actually make them look a little bit greener and a little bit darker. Looking a little bit closer, and again, that's 1 through 3. This is 4, 5, and 6. 7 I've still got in the jug because I only have 4 5-gallon buckets. So there are the final 3, 5, 6, and 7. As you can see, 6 and 7 are pretty similar. That little piece of something's just from what was in the bucket. So we're starting to get diminishing returns anyway. I think it's looking pretty good. One thing I didn't mention before, but we really need to stress, any line in your car that has liquid in it, you want 0 air. If there's air in your brakes, you're gonna feel squishy brakes at the very least and could be dangerous. If you got air in your radiator, it could get hot, things could go south. If you got air in any other line, same thing. It's just not gonna operate the way it should. So just like bleeding the power steering, we're gonna bleed the radiator before we finish up. It's pretty straightforward. First thing I'm doing is as I pour, making sure that this never gets all the way down, because as long as there's pressure in the top, that air is gonna start to push up through the top. Now, the radiator's not gonna take this whole thing, which is good. We want a little bit of coolant still in the bottom. We're gonna turn on the engine and the bubbles are gonna keep coming up. After we do that, all we have to do is make sure everything's closed. We'll take the car for a drive, let everything heat up, let this good coolant run through the system. Then once it's cooled off again, we're just gonna open up the radiator cap, check the level, top it off if we need to, and that's it. The next time we're with the Lancer, we're gonna work on the transmission fluid, which is something else that I've never done before, but I've looked underneath and it's looking kind of crusty. We may have a little extra work to do, but I'm excited to get into it, learn about it, and try it all out. We'll see you in the next one.